Well, folks, we are back in for another edition of the Last Word on Sports Media podcast. I am the somewhat capable co-host of the program, TJ Rives. He is Mike Gill, my colleague, my co-host here on the Sports Media Pod. You find Mike every day in Atlantic City on the ESPN radio station there with the afternoon show, The Sports Bash. Always good to be with you as we chop up the latest in the sports media world and topics and newsmakers and ratings and all of it. You having a good week so far as we come in on another edition, Mike?
Well, we're coming down off the Eagles Super Bowl, and it's been the winter sports teams are pretty dreadful. The Sixers were down by 50 last night to the Bulls. This Joel Embiid thing has been a disaster. And, spring training's underway, but the Phillies don't have a lot. But, it's the weather's actually pretty nice. It's supposed to be 60 degrees here tomorrow, so the weather's turning.
And by the way, you're making plans, as Mike again is in Atlantic City, you're making plans to come my way in West Central Florida for spring training with baseball underway, the Phillies in Clearwater, not far from where I am, and all of it, the rite of spring and baseball, all of it is about to get cranked up. Florida, Arizona with the spring training, and then the baseball season.
Yeah, I go down every year for actually go for the NCAA tournament. Just love watching the hoops, so it's a way to get some sun, sit outside, watch the games, go to a couple baseball games. I was actually in Clearwater Super Bowl weekend calling some Division I women's softball games for MLB Network, so got a little taste of the weather. Early February, it was like 83 degrees, but saw some high level, the opening weekend of the women's softball season, and that was pretty cool. The nice complex down there in Clearwater. The games were being broadcast on MLB Network, which was a great initiative for them to give the ladies the platform for the entire weekend. I think they aired 3 games in all on MLB Network.
Cool, and a good opportunity for you as well with all the spring sports, college baseball getting going all over the South, especially, even though it's February. Texas, California, you got all this. So we're all good on that. All right, let's dive in. This is what we do. By the way, we are on video right now through Mike's YouTube page, Mike Gill Show YouTube page, and our social media. Follow him at Mike Gill Show on social media. Follow me at Buck Sideline Guy, BUC, Buck Sideline Guy for the Tampa Bay Buccaneers. One of my prominent gigs that I do every fall is work on the Buccaneer radio broadcast. But I love the sports media stuff. If you enjoy what we're doing here, rate us, review us. Those ratings and reviews help out. Follow and subscribe as well and interact with what we're doing on social media. On Apple, Spreaker, Spotify, you can subscribe. We come your way midweek giving our takes in the world of sports media. And let's begin with what you and I made mention of last week. A possible divorce, if not a likely divorce, is now a divorce. Or is it a divorce? For Major League Baseball and ESPN, they both jointly announced last week after we released the pod, that's it. Major League Baseball really scathing statement that they released saying, this is it. The 2025 season, the 36th year of Major League Baseball on ESPN will be the last, at least in its current form with Sunday Night Baseball, etc. 3 years left on the deal. And it appears from the outward signs, Mike, that it's Major League Baseball that pushed for this and said, if you're not interested in continuing to pay us what we think this is worth, we're hitting the nuke button. We're hitting the opt-out, and that's going to be it. They had to notify each other by March 1st. They didn't even wait until March 1st for the divorce to come up. All right, what's your reaction to this, Mike Gill?
I don't know where MLB thinks they're going to go. I think ESPN has to make this decision. I mean, really, $550 million. They're on multiple platforms paying a lot less money. ESPN saying, we're getting ripped off here. We have Sunday Night Baseball. We have the Home Run Derby. They have the wild card round. They don't get the NLCS or the ALCS. They don't get the World Series. They're not in the rotation there. And they felt that, hey, let's opt out of this deal. We think we can get a better deal. Well, MLB went and just hit a flamethrower and blasted the whole thing. They didn't want to negotiate. I don't know where they think they're getting a deal of $550 million a year. Now, maybe one of the streamers decides to do it, but why would that make sense for them? Roku has games on Sundays for $10 million for the whole season. I mean, if you're ESPN, you're saying, well, why are they getting Sunday afternoon games? We're getting Sunday night games. We're paying $550. They're paying $10 million.
And really, the novelty of the national game has just worn off because they've oversaturated it. That's the word I'll use. And we talked about it last week, and we've talked about it before with the Fox games, plural, of the week that they have all over the board on Saturday and even on other nights. With the Turner package, Warner Brothers Discovery Turner package of showing national games, plus the Apple Plus on Friday night, plus the Roku game and ESPN. There's just not a novelty to a national game of the week anymore. And this part is fascinating, too. ESPN often has overpaid drastically in terms of rights deals for the ability to show, like, unlimited highlights. So, like, when you're seeing sports centers throughout the day and at night showing baseball highlights, that's because it's part of the rights deal on how much they get to show because of what they're paying in addition to broadcasting, their own games, in addition to the home run derby, et cetera. As you have on the screen here for the audience that's watching us, the ESPN radio part of it is also in this deal, and it's a divorce, and ESPN radio has had the World Series, I believe, since 1997, going back,
you're talking about
28, 29 years, right?
ESPN Radio is a big deal for them because that gives them a presence at the World Series. It also gives them the ALCS, the NLCS, the Division Series, the wild card games, Sunday night baseball. They also do Saturday afternoon or Saturday nights and Wednesdays. I mean, they have games on throughout the year, more prominently towards the later part of the year. But they're going to have to fill, it's the big, but the World Series, the NLCS, the ALCS, the DS, all that stuff, that's all going away. So if you're a radio programmer who's an ESPN radio station, like myself, not thrilled with that because, quite frankly, the Phillies have been in our local market. We are not the Phillies affiliate, but we can carry the Phillies in the World Series. So if you're an affiliate that wants, a local baseball team, but you don't have the rights to them, that's a big deal. And if your market is a baseball market, you're losing that. So I don't know where they go. I mean, if Westwood One maybe picks them up, that could possibly get them back on in your market. But ESPN Radio did a really good job with that, and that's a big loss for, I think, for them. But
this was folded into the deal. The radio part was folded into the deal, and it's only worth, radio is what it is at this point. It's not worth a whole lot. It's not a massive rights deal to have the radio. All right. No. So you wonder if it's going to get folded in maybe with another entity that's televising or something like that. Who knows?
Outside of Fox, unless Fox, which I can't imagine them paying more money to get more games. They have a whole package. In fact, they announced their games today. They have the World Series. They have a championship series. They have Fox Game of the Week. They don't need to spend any more money to get.
And fun fact, Fox does not own Fox Sports Radio, for example. That's an iHeart property, separate entity that owns it. So it's not like that's folded in. ESPN obviously owns ESPN Radio, which, by the way, and we're not going down the rabbit hole, it's dying too as a 5-day-a-week or 7-day-a-week entity. It has been dying and it continues to die as a radio entity. So are you telling me
I'm losing my job soon?
No. I'm talking about the national entity.
We're an ESPN Radio affiliate.
Local guy, though, is still in great shape. Why? Yeah. Because you're covering and talking local things. The problem is a fleet of stations across the country listening to national hosts talk about the New York Knicks or about the Dallas Cowboys or about the LA Lakers all the time. It doesn't resonate the same way. It just does not.
The product is not the same. In fact, they just made more changes to the lineup recently here. So yes, they de-emphasize audio, no question about it. But if somebody will pick up the baseball postseason, whether it's a Sports USA, a Westwood One, somebody will dive in. I'm hoping that a Westwood One or Sports USA, by the way, does the Stanley Cup. They do college football.
The NFL.
The NFL, they don't do college football. They do the NFL. Compass Media does college and the NFL and college basketball. Westwood One is a little bit higher profile with the Sunday night, the Monday night, the Thursday night. the NFL playoffs, the Super Bowl, the NCAA tournament. So there are standalone entities that have the option to bring it on, and I'm hoping that is the case here. That said, I don't know what network is going to say, I want Sunday Night Baseball to keep that program going. I mean, you're talking about Sunday Night Baseball going on for 30 years, and who's going to say we want to put Sunday Night Baseball games on? NBC is now going to have NBA games on Sunday nights in the fall. I mean, maybe through the summer they can.
We know the NFL has it in September and October.
In September, right? So you could do it up until your biggest time of the year. So I don't think it's a fit for NBC. CBS, I mean, man, they haven't done baseball since when? Ooh, the 80s? When CBS had the baseball package?
CBS had it briefly in the early 90s.
Okay, so that's going back a long ways that CBS had MLB
I think
baseball.
There's a very real possibility they're going to have to do this at a big discount. It may be a streamer again. Could be on that. And the other question becomes, what does ESPN do from April to October on Sunday night? I guess they slide in the NBA.
Well,
they maybe slide in other sports, yeah.
Your former partner, John Lewis, wrote a whole piece on this and mapped it out pretty well. Women's basketball probably going to get a bigger stage now in April. Their championship game, which was an afternoon game, maybe that's now a night game, but you probably will see WNBA games get higher profile with the boost in women's sports. NHL will probably now get, instead of the Sunday afternoons, they'll probably get some Sunday night tonnage throughout there. You'll get NBA games. College baseball World Series in the middle of the summer might get a little bit. You know what's another big game was that Little League Classic game that was a Sunday night game. Generally, see what ends up happening to there. But of all the networks, does a network say we want to take a shot with baseball? I don't see that. Does one of the TNTs, Warner Brothers, they already have some games. Do they say we'll take the Sunday night game too?
Yep.
I don't see that. I don't see that. My idea was, how about one of the networks? Who's watching network television? Anybody?
It's definitely declined. Besides the live sports, right?
All right, exactly. So, can you buy series and put them on Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday? You get the whole series, and it's a story. It's a 3-game. That's one of the problems with these national games. They pop them on one game in the middle of a series, and it's kind of disjointed. Like the game one was Friday night, Fox gets the Saturday game, and then it goes back to the regional network on Sunday. Hey, we'll buy a series and put it on Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, and Friday, Saturday, Sunday, and we get 2 series of the best series of the week. And maybe a network just says, you know what, live sports is all people are watching. We'll pay the money, but we want series every single week for the baseball season, and almost have like a mini MLB network all week long. I don't know if that could work. Apple TV Plus tried it Friday nights. I don't think they do very well. This Roku thing is the fourth. They had games on Facebook. They had games on Twitter. They've had games on Peacock. Had that morning game that was on at like 11:30. That hasn't worked. So it's not working on these streamers because baseball's audience is older and they're trying to go where the younger people are, but the younger people don't want your product.
And maybe it's Fox, and I'm pretty sure this could be a cause for, what does their agreement say? If they have the network TV exclusive, if they're the only ones that can put it, besides those wild card games that Disney was putting on ABC, if they have the network TV exclusive, they would have to be brought in. And maybe Fox becomes your Sunday night broadcaster as part of this deal too for a standalone game. I don't know. Certainly
Fox wants to. I think they spend $750 million on what they have, and they have the World Series and they get the championship series.
Right.
Do they want to add to that?
Or do they work out renegotiation where some of the games now are Sunday night as opposed to just Saturday afternoon or whenever else they're showing a national game? We'll see.
Possible, yes.
We'll see what they do.
it would be a shame to see that Sunday night one, that's their one time to get a little national recognition. But we know that baseball, look, they're saying, why is the NBA getting $76 billion? Why is football getting all this money? And we're getting told $550, no good. So they either have to come to terms with who they are or what happens to their national presence.
Yeah, they've oversaturated it. Well, all the games are on everywhere. You can watch them in various forms and fashion, and that's a big part of the problem. There's no novelty to it anymore. The games are all on.
But as you know, TJ, these regional sports networks are having some big problems, and that's where baseball, they live on these regional sports networks. Oversaturated with too much of it. I realize the other sports are on everywhere too, but you can't complain if all of your 162 games for every team are on everywhere and there's no novelty. All right, we gave that a ton of time. We gave that like 15 minutes. That's like the most time that anybody probably has given Major League Baseball for how little people actually care about the regular season. That's for sure. Let's move on to something. I'm in a baseball market. You're not.
You are. I'm actually in a baseball market. Yes, that actually has good relative TV, relative TV ratings. But again, nobody's getting massive TV ratings off of anything going on in the regular season for Major League Baseball. Let's move to something as a segue that did have really good ratings. How about this Four Nations tournament that played out? We talked last week about the buildup for the Thursday night game, and man, did it deliver. And the phrase I used is they accidentally scored with this Four Nations tournament. I don't believe that Disney and the NHL in their wildest dreams believed they were suddenly going to get 9 million people to watch the Canadian battle with the United States in Boston, won by the Connor McDavid goal in overtime for the Four Nations Cup. So they played this round robin with the U.S., Canada, Sweden, and Finland. And that Saturday game back a week and a half ago in Montreal stoked everything with the fights, the Canada versus U.S. economy, tariff stuff, the booing of the U.S. national anthem. So it all built to Thursday. And Mike, that's the highest rating, 9.25 million for any NHL game, including the Stanley Cup Finals going back to the 70s. It's the highest rated hockey game ever on cable TV. All right, what do you make of this now that the audience came in huge for that game the other night?
I talked about this Friday. I'm in Philadelphia. It has a little bit of a Rocky feel to it, a political feel to it, where the booing of the national anthems brought all this political tension, Canada and U.S. and the tariffs and all this stuff that's going on. If it's USA playing Finland, I don't think you're getting 9.2. USA Sweden, I don't think you're getting 9.2. I think what has happened currently in the world that we live in between the U.S. and Canada certainly played a role here, much like Rocky IV. You have the Russians and U.S., and it caused a huge stir for that movie and at that time. And I think the timing was right. The political landscape works out for this hockey game. I don't anticipate it doing anything for hockey, much like the World Baseball Classic did nothing for baseball.
Well, and to your point, on Sunday, the NHL resumed a few days later, and the game's got around 1 million people watching, 1.5 million, something like that. Nowhere near this audience, even on network TV, even on ABC. Yeah. Again, the regular season games will struggle to get more than 1 million or a couple of million to watch. The playoffs, they're thrilled if they get 6-7 million people, even if it's that high, to watch for the Stanley Cup Finals, etc. But it happened organically with a lot of factors, and it's one of those lightning in a bottle type things. Now, this is interesting when you go back and look at the ratings, and you reference again John Lewis. We love our colleague with Sports Media Watch and his website. That the gold medal game, and this is the Olympics, Canada, United States, 2010 in Vancouver, won by Sidney Crosby with the golden goal in the overtime. Mike Gill, 27 million people watched that Olympic final on U.S. TV, not the Canadian audience. I mean, we're talking about the U.S. audience here. That's 3 times that audience going in the way back, and you weren't measuring out of home then either in 2010. And you bring it back just to last summer in August, and the USA basketball game, and basketball different than hockey, but the USA gold medal men's basketball game with France, with the United States with Steph Curry and LeBron, et cetera, and the French with Victor Wembanyama. That game had 20 million watching on a Saturday late afternoon in August. So that's just some reference points on the country versus country, us against them type thing. But still, this is it's a noteworthy, massive number that organically, they kind of stumbled into it.
Keep in mind, in 2010, a lot more cable subscribers than we have now.
Sure.
So much more possibility for viewers. And 9 million is still a huge number for hockey.
Massive.
I mean, for hockey to have 9 million viewers is out of, as you said, they just stumbled across this thing.
Just as a reference, the Stanley Cup final clinching game for the Florida Panthers over the Edmonton Oilers, I think the number was like 5.5 million last year. This got almost double that.
Mm-hmm.
For an event.
As you mentioned, it's USA, Canada. There was a lot going on there. If it's USA, Finland, Sweden, I think it probably does maybe in the 3 to 4 million range.
If that.
Yeah, I don't think they get the number, but they caught a little lightning in the bottle, and then we'll see what happens. This Four Nations kind of replaced the All-Star game, which I also think, the NBA All-Star, we talked about it last week, total disaster, still scored higher in the ratings than the USA-Canada game did on Thursday night. Was a 4.4 million. The All-Star game, I think, had 4.7 million. You might want to check me on that. But they were close. But the All-Star game still outdid it. Now, that being said, it was a mess. It was a joke. They got to do something. And people keep saying, well, why not do a Four Nations thing for basketball? I propose basketball almost needs to do what the Super Bowl does. Make it All-Star week. Have a convention, former players walking around, talking and promoting your game, all culminating to the Sunday night USA versus the world. All week long, you're prepping it up. Who's better? Who's going to win? And have a Radio Row. Make it a national week for basketball, because what they're doing now is bad.
Yeah, it's not working. That's the voice of Mike Gill, TJ Rives with you. It's the Last Word on Sports Media podcast. If you're only hearing us in podcast form, come find the video show. Mike's YouTube page, Mike Gill Show. Find us on social media as well as we stream this show. You see what we look like as we're going over the topics. And we go along. All right, let's move on to one. And this is unfortunate. When I saw the news on Monday that well-known New York sports host and personality and national sports host and personality with NBC, ABC, including the Olympics and more, Al Trautwig, passed away at the age of 68. His son confirmed to the New York media it was from complications with cancer. His cancer had reoccurred. He had been in remission from a couple of years ago, and it cuts him short at age 68 here. Trautwig, mainly known in New York for his work on MSG, Madison Square Garden Network, for the New York Rangers, the New York Knicks, the New York Yankees. But again, he did national work with ABC on Wide World of Sports, including calling events like boxing, the Olympics on ABC, then eventually the Olympics on NBC. And in fact, for 4 Olympics, he was the gymnastics announcer on NBC, one of the most coveted roles in all of Olympic play-by-play broadcasting. He was the Olympic broadcaster for 4 different Olympics for the women's and men's gymnastics. So there was such an outpouring, and I know you're going to show the video audience here of his colleagues taking to social media. Bruce Beck, who's been a long time, almost 40-year personality in New York. We're showing the audience that can't see it, that's hearing us on podcast, Beck covering the New York Rangers 1994 Stanley Cup parade in the heat in Manhattan for the massive parade they had for the Rangers winning the Stanley Cup on that day. And Bruce Beck's tribute is right there on social media. There's another one, John Giannone, who had been a long-time reporter and analyst on Madison Square Garden Network. John also with a tribute to Al Trautwig. He spent many a night in those MSG studios talking Rangers and Knicks and New York Yankees with Al. And we're showing everybody that a tribute that John put out with Al Trautwig, as well as the MSG put out a statement. Obviously, the Yankees, the Knicks, the Rangers all put out a statement. So did NBC Sports. Even our colleague John Rothstein, who's known so much for college basketball, the same way put out to the masses that Al had been a mentor to him and been so helpful to him early on in his career. I'm paraphrasing what John Rothstein put out as the CBS college basketball analyst, and is a big social media personality as well when it comes to college basketball, saying of Al Troutwick that he's the best broadcaster I've ever worked with, kind man, incredible mentor, prayers to his family, rest in peace to Al Troutwick. I only had a couple of occasions to be around him. The last one was like in the 1990s. He was down at New York Yankees spring training, which is in Tampa. And he's, again, very well-known national broadcaster. Could not have been more cordial to me and to others with Al. But just a quick thought from you, Mike Gill, here on Al Troutwick's passing here, because mainly if you're a New York sports fan, this guy's like a member of the family every night with the pre and post game show.
Yeah, and, you mentioned the MSG networks. Now, I don't get that. We're down in southern New Jersey, so we get the Philly stations. But I did remember him from those days from people that I know that lived up there. Whenever you'd go up, my college roommate lived up that way. You go up there. There was always Al Troutwick doing the pre and post game stuff for the teams up there. But what I remember most, I'm a radio guy. People don't remember this, but NBC Sports Radio had Sunday Night Football, and he was the host of the Sunday Night Football on Westwood One for that Sunday Night Football game.
Interesting.
Yes, but this is back when, I guess it was like 06, 07, somewhere around there. That he was the radio version of Sunday Night in America football.
And he did the Tour de France, he did the Olympics, different sports. But keep in mind, in the 90s, when the Rangers won the Stanley Cup, that's the last time that the Knicks were really that relevant. They were in the finals a couple times in the 90s. And then the Yankees became a dynasty where night in and night out, the games were on MSG, where the Jeter, Mariano Rivera, Roger Clemens, all of those, Darryl Strawberry, all those Yankee teams that were winning the championship, 96, 98, 99, 2000, Al Troutwick was there night in and night out, pre and post on MSG Network. So rest in peace to him and the outpouring.
And the one I was going to say, the one that I was going to say I remember the most is this one, Jimmy Traina. He was a huge part of those Knicks teams growing up, those 90s Knicks teams with Marv Albert doing the play-by-play. But when I was saying
on
MSG, all those pre- and post-game.
Right.
Yes, exactly. That was in those 90s era with Marv and Al
Patrick Ewing.
Patrick
Ewing. Exactly. Pat Riley is the coach, the whole bit. So, yes, rest in peace to Al Troutwick. We thought we would put that out on the Last Word on Sports Media podcast. All right, where do you want to go next? Do you want to stick with the NBA theme? And there's a couple of news items, including some ratings. Go ahead. What's the latest with NBC continuing to fill out its roster for next year, broadcasting the NBA, Mike Gill?
Yeah, so it looks like what a lot of people have kind of discussed is Noah Eagle will be on the NBC voice. Mike Tirico is going to be one of the voices, and Noah Eagle will be the other voice now. And mostly he is supposedly working with Dwayne Wade, and we heard them. You talked about the Olympic basketball. Yep. They did the Olympic basketball together. So Noah Eagle, they're starting to round up. Reggie Miller is going to be going to NBC as well. And from my understanding, NBC is going to have Sunday Night Football, and then when that is over, it will transition into Sunday Night Basketball. So you have Sunday night, like Basketball Night in America, Sunday Night Basketball, as the football season ends. So from about January to the end of the year, you'll get Sunday Night Basketball. And then
NBC has the All-Star game. They have another game of the week, right? And they also have playoff games, and they will eventually rotate into the NBA Finals, I believe, when it's all said and done, along with Disney. So if I have that correct.
That I'm not sure of, because I know
I think they
ABC,
do. I think they do. We'll have to double-check that. I have to double-check that while we're talking.
I know Mike Breen has called the finals consecutively for however long. I mean, over 20 years here. So I don't know that they've lost the finals there. We'll see. We know that there's 3 entities. Amazon Prime is the other that will have NBA games starting next season. We know that this is the final year for TNT, as we saw at the All-Star game, all of the hoopla around that. But inside the NBA, we'll be moving to ESPN, so that will stay alive. We don't know who the NBC shows will be.
And by the way, you are correct, and I misspoke. It is not the NBA Finals. They will get 6 of the conference finals over the next 11 years in the deal, as well as a rotation of the All-Star game. Actually, they get the All-Star game every year in this 11-year deal as part of it. 100 NBA regular season games per year on NBC or on Peacock and the USA Network. So there you go.
Keep this in mind. The Super Bowl is on NBC next year. The Winter Olympics are also on NBC. And the All-Star game, they all converge right around the same time. Mike Tirico, where will he be?
How about 1, 2, 3? How about all 3? They had him do the Super Bowl with the Rams and the Bengals, and then he immediately was doing the Winter Olympics, hosting remotely from LA and from New York, not from China. So I would look for him to try to do all 3 if he can, especially the All-Star game. We'll see.
They're all right near each other. I know the All-Star game this week was the Sunday after. I think the opening ceremonies for the Olympics are that same weekend. So we'll see.
Staggering on that. Also, some NBA TV ratings real quick, including for the triple header that they just had on ABC that included the Lakers wiping out the Nuggets. The triple header did see a little bit of audience growth from a year ago. None of the games, however, all 3 games, Mike, were one-sided in the ABC triple header this weekend. None of them got to the 3 million threshold. The Lakers Nuggets got right around a 2.9 million average. NBA ratings right now for regular season TV still down 30% over the last couple of years. So the product continues to suffer. Despite the massive financial windfall, they've got to kickstart the audience somehow, some way.
We'll see how tonight does. Tonight, Luka against the Mavs. We'll see how that rates. That should be a pretty good score. I don't know who has that. Is it ESPN has the game? I guess what's tonight? Tuesday night?
Tuesday. I think that's a Turner. I think that's a Warner Brothers Discovery Turner game. We'll see. But again, that's on cable. These games were on network TV on ABC as a triple header.
Yeah, we know trying to build it up. The product's getting criticized. A lot of people not happy with it. The All-Star game doesn't help. When you see guys making so much money, giving no effort, and then you see the hockey guys out there leaving it out there for $0 for their, for nothing, just basically for the letters on their sweater. That was a big statement weekend. You heard what PK Subban, who, a lot of people praising the work that he did during the Four Nations, and he came out and said, listen, you can't afford not to give effort because if you don't give effort, you are going to be exposed in our game. So it was kind of a crossroads moment for those two sports. We know the NBA still will outrate the NHL, but people who spent $76 billion on those products can't be thrilled with the numbers they're getting right now.
All right, couple more before we're out of here on the Last Word on Sports Media podcast. Some odds and ends. College basketball will become much more prominent now as February turns to March. We do know that Fox announced they got their highest rating of any college basketball game this year for the Michigan State Friday night game, close to a 2 million average on a Friday night. Interesting that Fox also had the Duke blowout of Illinois on Saturday night. We don't know that number yet. You and I are doing this Tuesday night into Wednesday. We don't know what that got. It was a blowout game, but that's got Cooper Flagg, the presumptive number 1 pick in the NBA draft, featured in a game at Madison Square Garden against Illinois, which gives you the Chicago market. Don't know what that got. And then on Sunday, St. John's has revitalized New York City, and they beat the 2-time defending champs UConn in a noon Fox game. Don't know that number yet. When we fill in the blanks, we'll see what the college audience did as it continues to try to grow towards March and the NCAA tournament. And we're now about to be within a couple of weeks of Selection Sunday, believe it or not, coming off this weekend. How about that?
Yeah, and as we speak, Duke's playing Miami tonight, so Duke's back at it. You mentioned Pitino. You and I called his last game at Iona here in Atlantic City. He left Iona to go to St. John's and has revitalized the New York basketball program. That was a glamour spot for years and years and years, Big East, and has been dormant for years. They're back. We'll see if they can bring in some ratings now in the tournament. This could be one of the last years we see the tournament in the field of 68 as we know it. I mean, really the field of 64. They put these gimmicky first 4 in. No one pays attention to them really. But they're talking about expanding this tournament, which would be
awful idea.
A shame. I agree. There's probably a lot of broadcasters out there saying more work for me. Great. The television, who's buying these games? Is Turner taking on more? CBS, Turner, that whole thing? Or does somebody else say, hey, we want in on those first round games?
Well, we'll see how much they expand by. There's been talk that it would be 4 more teams to 72, might be 8 more teams to 76. There's still, I keep saying, there's zero need for this. There's so much demand for what they already have. They're already making a ton with what they have. And here's the other killer against anybody making this argument. When you get to the 66th, the 67th, and the 68th team, you are scraping the bottom of the barrel every year on trying to reach those teams. There's nobody other than coaches and ex-coaches clamoring for this. The public at large is not clamoring for expansion of it. You've already got 68 teams in. You've got 36 at-large spots that are available. Besides every team's got a chance to win their conference tournament. I know you agree with me, but
you are promoting more mediocrity is what you're doing. Yeah, there's a lot of teams that, at the bottom that you're like, well, they deserve to be in and they deserve. No, you're just saying that mediocre teams deserve to get in and one mediocre team got in over another. Let's not promote mediocrity. Let's just say, damn it, we went 16-12. We should have been 20-8. I mean, come on.
Yeah, or win your conference tournament. You win your conference tournament, you automatically get in. That championship weekend is amazing. This time a year ago, no one had NC State on their radar because they had a losing record. Mike, you know this. They won 5 games in 5 days at the ACC tournament to automatically qualify. Had they lost the opening game to Louisville, their coach, Kevin Keats, was likely fired. They win 5 games in 5 days, including winning the ACC tournament to make the NCAA tournament, and then they win 4 games in the NCAA tournament and make the Final Four. They won 9 games in a row. This is what March is all about and why we love that time of year for college basketball.
And you talk about it, we called a game a couple of years ago or saw a game. You might have called the game. I wasn't on the call for that one. But when St. Peter's won the MAC and then became one of the great stories in there. Win your conference.
Upset Kentucky. Yes.
Exactly. It happens every year. Don't take those special moments away.
Agreed.
So, we're hopeful. I'm very hopeful. And I love the tournament as much as the next. I schedule vacations to watch the tournament, and that would make my vacation even better to have more games on the whole week, but I don't want it. I don't need it. By the way, NC State this year is 11-16.
Yes, they're awful, and I don't think, here we go again with the Four Nations, you don't capture lightning in a bottle like that again. I mean, you hate to say never. I don't know that you're ever going to see a team 3 or 4 games below 500 win 9 consecutive postseason games to go to the Final Four, but that's exactly what NC State did last year. Hey, one more nugget. You want to talk about something that's trending up. It's NASCAR. They are bouncing back on Fox. They had another 4.5 million people watch the Atlanta NASCAR race off the Daytona 500. So auto racing on Fox building, and this will eventually be the Indianapolis 500 for the first time ever on Fox in late May. They're already running the promos, etc. By the way, the first Fox NASCAR race, you will not be down here for this. I'm sorry. First Fox IndyCar race will be the Grand Prix of St. Petersburg in St. Petersburg, Florida. That's coming this weekend. So the Grand Prix and IndyCar race will be on Fox, and they'll build to the Indy 500. So Fox kind of shoehorning in on racing and seeing they've got 10% audience growth right now year over year on the NASCAR ratings. So it's on the way up a little bit for Fox. Mike, did we leave anything else out on the Last Word on Sports Media podcast, or are we pretty good here for the latest edition in late February?
I think we're good. One big thing, the Combine this week, will Combine coverage outrate the NHL?
Off the Four Nations. I
Not the Four Nations, but
I swore. I mean, off the Four Nations, you would hope the hockey gets a bump for the regular season games. I swore off the Combine long ago. As overrated as anything that's getting so much attention and so much airtime. The NFL Network constantly showing the shuttle drill, the vertical leap, the 40-yard dash. Hours and hours and hours, Mike, that they're showing it.
God bless the guys who know I don't want to say that they're how to fill the time, who do their research and say, hey, here's so-and-so doing the shuttle run, and he had this, and he did that.
And by the way, that's the fastest shuttle run since 2019 that we've had. Somebody had to look that up. You're exactly right.
They've got a producer behind the scenes doing that. But for you to be on camera and have to come up with, this guy's measurables and stats and facts about his season, that's a kudos to that guy. Also, quickly, Pat McAfee's show has been on hiatus since the Super Bowl. It's back this week at the Combine.
Interesting. Took a little break.
It's interesting because they don't have fill-in hosts for them. The show's off the air. They just don't do the show. And ESPN puts on SportsCenter in that time slot from noon to 2 on, is it noon to 2? I think it is
correct.
On the television
Correct.
side. So, yeah.
Correct. He has written a golden ticket for himself, including getting to take weeks off right after the football season. Good for him on that. Listen, I think we're good, my friend. Have a good rest of the week. They need to hear you on the Sports Bash on the ESPN 97.3 ESPN radio affiliate in Atlantic City, weekday afternoons. Find us here at lastwordonsports.com/podcast, the Last Word on Sports Media podcast. Mike, be well, brother. Thank you. As always, chopping up the sports media topics, newsmakers, ratings, etc.
Yep, we'll talk next week.
We love it. I'm merely TJ Rives. Again, find us on podcast form if you were only watching on video, Apple, Spreaker, Spotify. If you're listening, come find the video show on YouTube and social media. It's the Last Word on Sports Media podcast.